Hi, my name is Heath Bromus. Today I'll be discussing the use of artificial intelligence in law enforcement. Specifically, I like to address the ethical concerns surrounding predictive policing. So first, a little bit of background on what predictive policing is. Predictive policing is where historical crime data is fed into AI algorithms that in turn forecast where and when crimes might happen. These tools will then identify individuals or areas as high risk, meaning that there's a higher risk of a crime being committed in that area. And then these areas are targeted with increased police presence. And just as a tie-in, Minority Report is one of my favorite movies. If you've seen it, it's loosely based on predictive policing where people are arrested for crimes that they're going to commit in the future. But modern day predictive policing looks more like this. There's geographic areas on a map that are identified as high risk. This is an example from Shreveport, Louisiana. You can see that there's certain areas in red that are high crime probability rates. And I'll be focusing on this geographic classification. I'd like to discuss a couple ethical concerns of using this predictive policing. First, the tools rely inherently on biased algorithms, which in turn damage the community on an individual level. And these biased algorithms perpetuate a destructive feedback loop, which I'll touch on a bit more later. And secondly, the context and use of these predictive tools is not to protect and serve, but rather to intensify law enforcement presence. So what do I mean by predictive policing causing a feedback loop? Police will target areas defined as being high risk, which results in increased police presence, and obviously with more presence in the area, they'll be more likely to arrest, could potentially incite violence. There's increased surveillance, which leads to reinforcing that the area is high risk. Another dangerous implication is development of racial bias. These geographic areas are often of minority demographic, so labeling them as a whole as high risk could bias law enforcement towards them. And it's these feedback loops that hurt the individual. If you're innocent and living in a high-risk area, you suffer the consequences of increased suspicion and police presence. So there's a couple of key components that play into these ethical concerns. First, the implementation of the model itself is one of threat identifying and neutralization. So regardless of guilt or innocence, you're labeled as at risk. We can cause adverse treatment of people. So if the police are informed of you being high risk prior to interacting with you, it's like you're being treated with suspicion already. And there's an underlying issue with predictive policing as a concept. Judgments are going to be made before real evidence comes to light. However, predictive policing tools could be approached quite differently in light of these ethical concerns. We could look at them from the ethics of care perspective. Rather than focusing on identifying and neutralizing threats, we could consider the system as a whole and how it could be used to offer programs for the community and prevent crime to a, quote, high-risk population. For example, a study done with the One Summer program implemented in Chicago in 2012 and is still ongoing today found that at-risk youth who were offered summer jobs had a 51% reduction in involvement with arrests when compared with the control group. So predictive policing utilizes inherently biased algorithms that raise ethical concerns because it predisposes people to prejudice, and the implementation of these predictive policing tools is used to intensify law enforcement rather than community needs. Thank you.